Hello, everybody. This is Arwen Lewis, and you're listening to the Arwen Lewis Show. And today, my very special guest is Riva. Like an ocean, like a forest, flowing like a river, the songs of the earth write the music in my soul, says Riva. In India, stars are not made, they are born. Music is not a business, it's a way of life. The respect for music as one of the highest art forms reflects in the training that musicians put into their musical studies. Riva may have been born into an illustrious Bollywood family, but her star is rising under her own light. A multi-talented artist who has mastered Western, Carnatic, and Hindustani vocals, alongside classical piano, Riva is an award-winning songwriter and collaborator. Riva's music is the dream combination of traditional jazz and ultra-modern 21st century pop, wrapped in a gorgeous vocal instrument and seasoned with a huge pinch of soul. Hello, Riva, and welcome to the Arwen Lewis Show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come on and talk about your career and journey as a musician. I'm so
It's my
excited.
pleasure.
You've got such a rich background of really
Thank
eclectic
you.
yeah. So so let's just start talking about your musical education. You have a very prestigious education, and
Mm-hmm.
you've mastered Western, Carnatic, and Hindustani vocals alongside
Right.
classical piano. Completed 8 grades of piano with distinction from the Royal Schools of Music in London. So, what inspired you to study music initially? And let's just talk about all of those different trainings.
Um, I think like it's such a privilege to grow up in a musical family. Not just because of the exposure to music that comes naturally, but also because of the people you meet, and you meet such great artists. And in my house, I remember the tanpura would be played every morning. Tanpura is an Indian instrument. It's similar to a sitar. And I remember sleeping on my mother's lap while she practiced and played the tanpura. And I would put my ears onto the resonator of the tanpura and would listen to it for hours. So there's so much music in the world, and I feel like one lifetime isn't enough. And as a little girl, I had this cute little pink tape recorder, and every week I would go to a music store and I would buy a bunch of cassettes and CDs. And that was something I loved doing. Like, I didn't like going shopping, I didn't like watching movies, but I loved buying CDs from a music store. So I would do that, and then I would listen to it on repeat mode, like literally 50 times or more, until everyone at home was fed up of it.
Do you remember what
And
those albums were that you used to buy? Like, who were some of your favorite artists when you were growing up? And
well, Mariah was my all-time favorite, and of
yeah,
course, Michael Jackson, Barbara Streisand. I grew up listening to all these classics, Celine Dion and Phil Collins. Yeah, so I was just very, very passionate about music. And then as I grew up, I realized more and more that music is what makes me happy, and I'm on a different trip when I create music. I mean, there's nothing like that eureka moment of knocking off a song that didn't exist before.
right. And also I wanted to say too, like your songwriting, I didn't necessarily mention it much in the bio, but you are a very accomplished songwriter and collaborator too, which is it's quite the package to be a completely trained musician and a songwriter. And so when did you begin writing songs? Was it like in the middle of your studies of music, or yeah, what inspired you to start writing?
I was very close to my grandmother,
Hmm.
my mother's mother, and she was like really, really. She used to. I literally like grew up. She took care of me as I grew up, and I used to stay with her more or less because my parents used to be touring because they're both artists, and they weren't at home most of the times. I was with my grandmother, and I was so close to her. And then she passed away when I was 9, 8 or 9 years old, and that's when I wrote my first song. I don't know what happened. I mean, I just started writing. So, um, yeah, and ever since I've just been writing. It was a way to express my emotions.
What is your songwriting process like? Do you do lyrics first and then music, or does it just depend on what kind of
No,
mood you're in?
it just depends. Sometimes I just get both. Like sometimes I kind of dream of a song, like I'm sleeping and then I wake up like with this song, like with one chorus line or something, and then I build on that. That's happened many times, and it would just come to me naturally in the most like weirdest places. Like I would be sipping my coffee and I just suddenly comes. But when I try to write, sometimes I'm blank. Like I don't know what's going on. So I think trying too hard doesn't work for me, at least. Yeah.
I think you're right. I mean, after having, spoken with a lot of songwriters, in this past 6 months since I've been doing this show, most songwriters all say the same thing. Like the best songs are the ones that just kind of like come to you and flow through you. Um,
Yeah. I think
and
it can be taught. It's kind of a gift. Like it's almost like a magical process that happens.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and same with music. I mean, you can teach music, but what you
Right.
do
Yeah.
with it is kind of the same thing, right? It's like we're the channel for the music and the song and the melody.
Hmm.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about your vocal training and the difference between Western, Carnatic and Hindustani, vocal styles?
Right. So I feel like Carnatic music tends to be more structured, and
Okay.
it has set rules, and it relies on fixed rhythm patterns and melody, whereas Hindustani music is more improvisational, I would say, allowing for greater flexibility and creative expression.
Okay.
And then Western music uses just minor and major scales and equal temperament notes. And Indian classical music uses a much more complicated system of scales.
Okay.
And it's like a mix of parent scales and that of descendant families, which sound very varied from each other. So, yeah. And I feel like in Indian classical music, um, the equal tempered division of musical notes is not followed. So instead of notes in different scales, like different pitch ratios are used. I can give you a demo. It's very hard to describe it like that if you want me to. I'm sorry, I think I lost you. Hello? Hmm. I don't know what happened. There's a glitch. Can you hear me? Hmm. I
Sorry.
lost. There's some sort of a glitch. So
Yeah, you want to go ahead and give me a little demo of what you were
yeah,
just
so
telling us about?
Carnatic would be like something like da 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 da. That's the Carnatic style, and the Hindustani would be da da ah and the Western like would be something in the similar scale. It would be um, na, na, yeah, something like that. So it's totally different. It's a different way of singing each genre, I think. So I
Totally.
try.
Oh my gosh, that was beautiful. You're very hypnotizing.
Thank you.
And the Western was very Mariah of you as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's my inspiration.
I can hear that right away. Would you
Thank
say
you.
that the Hindustani is kind of the jazz to Carnatic, like jazz is to classical and Western music?
Yeah, I guess so. Because
Like
there's
improv.
more room for, yeah, improvisation in Hindustani classical. So I would say so.
What was your education like? Like what were your schools like when you were learning these styles? Like what would a day in study be like?
Well, I learned from different gurus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I learned from a lot of people. Like my first guru is my father, and
Okay.
then I learned Carnatic music from Prasanna Variyar and Balamani Iyer. Like they're both maestros of Carnatic music. And I learned Hindustani classical from Pandit Rajan Sajan Mishra. So it was just a whole different kind of just different schools of music, and it was pretty hard for me to kind of blend it together and keep it authentic at the same time. um,
Hmm.
and then I learned piano from Miss Shanti Selden. She was a Jewish lady, and yeah, I've just been learning, and I think
That's
it's never enough. Like I'm still learning, and I'm a keen learner. So yeah.
And do you feel like your music kind of evolves the more you learn? Like, do you change styles and genres depending on, what you're studying at the time?
Yeah, I do. My music grows with me. Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah.
It's interesting, and I really love that you've told me that you learned from gurus because I feel like that's a really experiment, or excuse me, a really spiritual experience too,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
feel
it
like
is.
it's kind of like an intuitive thing that's transferred like between the two of you.
Right. Yeah.
And so as you said, your parents are both performers and touring performers. What do they do? What are their backgrounds?
Well, my dad sings in Bollywood movies, and my mother sings classical, semi-classical, to light music. So, and they recorded multiple albums together.
Oh,
So
beautiful.
they're a duo and they perform together. And I've been listening to that and watching their shows ever since I was a little girl. And like I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to become a musician.
So that's
um,
what inspired you to, yeah, to
yeah,
be a
because they both
performer.
sing. I mean, yeah, it just runs in my blood, I
Yeah.
guess. And um, yeah, I just feel blessed to be born in such a musical family.
And I mean, it just sounds like that was your calling and you followed it, and how beautiful that you've been able to make your dream a reality.
Mm, thank you.
Uh, do you play any other instruments besides piano?
No, not really. I try to play the ukulele sometimes and
Yeah.
just accompany myself, but no, not really.
And for piano, that was something I wanted to ask you too. Do you so you're classically trained
Hmm.
from the Royal Schools of Music in London.
Right.
Um, and so, well, first let me ask you this. Yeah, like what was your education like there? Like what genres were you trained in? Do you take the melodies that you learned in Hindustani, like with the vocals and Carnatic vocals, and take that and transpose it to the piano? Does your vocal training affect the way you play piano? Or yeah, what was your piano training like?
So let me talk about the piano part first. And
Okay.
so, yeah, I've passed all 8 grades of classical piano with distinction from the ABRSM boards of the Royal Schools of London. And I remember my teacher, Nishanti Selden, she used to say that the pedal is the breath of the piano, and that the most perfect technique is that which is not noticed at all. And she used to always tell me that let your left hand sing like a cellist, and don't hammer it, because I used to be this little girl like trying to play the piano. And she was like, stop hammering it. Form an apple with your hands, keep it light and gentle. And she taught me the importance of rhythm and various time signatures, and um, You know, I feel like one way musicians practice rhythms is by breaking them up into smaller, more easily identifiable sub patterns. So we did a lot of sight reading and oral training, and she used to say that I have the best ears. Like that's the best thing I have. Like I have great ears because I used to be very sharp. And I remember like everything she taught me, and she was much more than my piano teacher. And I really, really adored her. Yeah, she was like my fairy godmother. But I don't really blend it into my vocal practice because I want to stay true to each genre. And yeah, I don't want to kind of make it into a fusion because that just wouldn't sound right.
Right. So you
Yeah,
like that the melodies that you've been trained in Hindustani and Carnatic are specifically for voice, and then
yeah.
piano is its own thing. How do so what kind like do you go, is it classical mainly, or do you do any jazz piano as well?
No, I only play classical.
And do you not sing when you play piano? Do you not
I
accompany?
do, I do, I
You do.
do. That's just like pop songs. I mean, I
Yeah.
just sing my own music and play chords. Yeah, I do that. I do.
Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Um,
Well, we're gonna get ready to run out to break really quickly, and when we come
sure.
back, yeah, I want to talk about your live shows and
Yeah, of
just continue
course.
talking about your journey. Everybody, if you're just tuning in, my very special guest is Riva, and today we're playing her song "En Vogue," and that is a featured song at the end of the track, or at the end of the show as a featured track. So you'll hear that in its entirety. And then we're also playing 6 other excerpts from her songs as well. And you can find more out about her at riwarathod@gmail.com if you need to contact her. Instagram, Riwa Rathod. Rathod, is that how you say it? How do you spell
Yeah,
that?
that's odd.
Okay, Rathod.
Yeah.
And
So
then,
REWARATHOD,
okay, perfect.
isn't it? Yeah.
And then, yeah, anyway, we're going to take you out to break with her song In Love and War and bring you back in with All I Need Is You. So please enjoy, and we'll be right back.